This is a Monster 659 engine. It's the smallest version of the 696, 796 engine. It's a special engine made for Australia and New Zealand for our LAMS, learner approved motorcycle scheme. It has a 3mm shorter stroke crank than a 696. Apart from that, it's pretty much exactly the same engine, and even as a 796, the cylinder heads, the cylinders are exactly the same on all three engines. What I would call a small block, which means it has a smaller cylinder stud spacing than the 900 engine series. And it's the modification of the original small block, which is the 400 to 800 engine series engine, with the new style cylinder heads, which I would call a DS style head, which DS was the 1000 dual spark engine introduced in 2003. These heads are the same as those DS heads. In this iteration, they're a single spark engine only. But apart from that, the cylinder head is exactly the same style as the 1000 DS engine. That means it has a camshaft that runs directly in the cylinder head. There's no bearings, and they use full oil pressure on the cams to run the cams in the head. The camshafts, there's the two camshafts. This is a DS style cam. You can see it's a much larger diameter shaft, and this surface here and this surface here are the actual bearing surfaces. That's what runs in the head. This is a thrust bearing surface, and the cams get full oil pressure from the left hand side, push them across. This is the pulley side here. That's the old style cam, so as you can see, they're quite different. One thing about the 659 engine with the shorter stroke is that to take up the difference in stroke, Ducati use all the same length rods in all the small blocks, so the piston is longer. And that means that the 659 piston is the heaviest piston of all the three engines. They all use the same 88mm bore, so this piston is 1.5mm longer in the compression height, which is the height between the centre of the pin and the crown. And compared to a 796 engine, has a 66mm stroke, which is 11.8mm more stroke than this engine has. The difference in pin compression height will be 5.9mm. As an extreme example of that, this is comparison of an 800 piston and a 400 piston. The 800 piston is a 66mm stroke. The 400 is 51mm stroke. So there's 15mm difference in the stroke, or 7.5mm difference in the compression height of the piston. And you can see the flat edge of the piston on the 800 is here, and the 400 is here. And it should be 7.5mm. That's how they take up the difference in the strokes on all the Ducati engines pretty much. They all generally stick to the same length rod. The rods in these are all 124mm long, which means that in comparative terms, all the Ducati engines have quite long rod ratios. You might hear, if you're into American V8s, they talk about rod ratios a lot, and they're usually in the 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 ratio is considered long. These things are all up around 2, and the 400 with a 51mm stroke and a 124mm rod is 2.2 something. So this is just a short video to show exactly what this engine is, and then I'm going to start playing with it.